everybody. This is a leadership training on self-awareness and identifying who you serve. In this training, what you'll receive is how to get very clear on the kind of people that you work with, understanding who they are, what they want, what they need, and also understanding yourself on a little bit deeper level as to where you're at, where you want to go. So, a couple words on self-awareness. Um, so I'm a meditation teacher, and that's who I pretend to be. And a couple of things about teaching meditation or practicing meditation, rather, is that um, we start to, as younger people, we start to create a sense of self, whoever that is. And you get a career, you get a job, and you're saying, okay, I've made it. I'm 35 years old, I'm 40 years old, or however old, and you're this engineer or this executive or what have you, and like you've created something, you've got a house or whatever. Now you've got a self to work with. And then later on in the spiritual path, you might start deconstructing that self and seeing that the self is always changing, it's always moving, it's insubstantial. It's really hard to just grab hold of your sense of self. And you're very different than you are now compared to how you are at 20 years old or 30 years old or 10 years old, your likes and preferences and stuff like that. Um, as leaders and as entrepreneurs, or even as entrepreneurs, it's very important to have high degrees of self-awareness. Let's just start with like really basic stuff like who, what, when, where, why, how. Like, who do I portray myself to be in a professional environment? Why do I do that? Where do I do that? How do I do that? And we'll kind of dissect that really quick. So, who do I portray myself to be? I portray myself to be hypothetically an employee at a tech startup, and I'm the admin guy, and that's who I think I am, and that's who I want to be seen as. Where do I put that? I might put that on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, uh, wherever that might be. Um, how do I solve that role or perform that role? Um, you know how you do your job, you know how you do what you do. Um, but just kind of looking at it and like taking two steps back and looking at it from a different direction can be so helpful. Um, other things that might be a little bit more deeper is why do I do this? Understanding your why is super, super important. And in other videos that we had, we talked about our vision, and our vision, the why is like the foundation of it all. Why get out of bed in the morning? Why go to work, do what you have to do? You know, the purpose behind it. And if your why isn't radically clear, you are you're going to be in a I'm actively trying to filter myself, but I'll just say it how it's coming to my mind. If your why isn't radically clear, you will be in a world of hurt. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. But if you don't have a freaking really strong why and a really strong purpose as to why you do what you do and why you exist, there's going to be a lot of bricks thrown at you and you won't have the proper shield to deflect them. Now, in your 20s and your 30s, I think it's totally fine, and that's very, very normal to not know your meaning, your purpose, or your role, your why you're wanting to do what you're wanting to do. But as you get older, as you start to get a little bit of battle wounds, if you will, and life starts to happen, at the end of the day, our purpose, our faith, our reasoning is what fuels us through everything else. So our purpose is pretty closely connected with our sense of self-awareness. And if you're a parent out there, I'm not, I don't know what that's like, but I have two parents and they're both alive and they're good parents. Um, your parent, you're like, just make a better human. Just make a better human than you are. That's a great purpose. But if you want to have even more of a purpose, we've talked about having your purpose is to find your purpose. And a great way to find your purpose is to consistently be self-aware and train in self-awareness. And what better way to train in self-awareness than to be aware of the self? What better way to train in self-awareness than to be aware of the self and really look at the self from different angles? Like, what is your sense of self? Some people associate their sense of self with their job. Some people associate their sense of self with their spirituality. Some people associate their sense of self with their emotions. Some people associate their sense of self with their level of conceptual ability and intellectual ability. So, whatever fragment of your sense of self you think you are, look at it and really start to see those patterns. Um, why? Because you'll start to find a direction through consistently looking at yourself and understanding what lights you up, understanding the kind of people you want to be around, understanding what kind of um, energy life gives you. And at the end of the day, I think the last thing I'll share about self-awareness and the importance of self-awareness, and this is just from my personal experience, at the end of the day, it's going to reduce the reactivity in life. I'll leave you with a quote from Dr. Jordan Peterson, which some people like, some people hate. I don't really care. I find value from the man, but I don't agree with everything that he says. Um, what goal will you give yourself to justify the inevitable pain you will face in your life? Now, precisely what he said was, what goal will you give yourself to justify the inevitable suffering you will face in your life? I tend to like to say the inevitable pain, because suffering, in my opinion, is optional because it's psychologically caused. You don't have to suffer. Pain for sure. We will face pain. Um, so that's very important. In terms of who you work with, I'll touch on this very, very lightly. And next week, I'll try to go a little bit more in depth about it. But so your sense of self, you've understood your sense of self. Now understand the sense of self of the people that you work for or the people you work with. Who, what, when, where, why, how. So let's say I am a coach, I have clients. Okay, where are your clients? My clients are everywhere. They live everywhere. No, that's like, where do most of your clients live? Okay, most of my clients tend to live in America, in Texas, and Austin. Okay, interesting. So that's the where. And the who is like, what is your socioeconomic background? Or what is what's their age range? Understanding these little data points are super, super important. Um, and really getting crystal clear who you work with or who you work for. Because if you can get crystal clear as to who you work with or who you work for, or both, you can enter their mind. And if you can enter your mind, you'll know what makes them tick and you know how to work with them, hopefully in an ethical way, in a good way. Um, I think the last thing I will share, and this is just a very high level overview, is on being employed. I could hear somebody in the background of this video watching it like 2 weeks later, a month later, saying, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, babbling bald man with a black shirt, but I have a job. And none of this stuff applies to me because I have a job. You don't understand me." bald man. I don't know who's watching my videos saying that, but I see you out there. Um, it might be skillful to really understand who your boss is, where your boss is from, what motivates your boss, what your boss is afraid of, what happened to your boss when maybe your boss is like 14 years old and maybe your boss has like some sort of trauma that you have no idea about. You don't have to ask your boss that kind of question, but it's really good to understand the operating system that the people in your organization are running internally. And that can help you level up, that can help you work and be more useful. Um, and just really start to read people on a different level. So that's it. I think this is about 11 minutes. So thanks for enduring a minute over. I hope you had as much fun as I had in this short time together. And next time we'll talk about the who you serve a little bit more in detail. And we might also touch on self-awareness too. Depends on what's useful for most people. Thank you very much.